She didn't mean to be cruel. That's what made it worse. Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into today's story, I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And how are you doing today? Really, I want to hear from you. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button right now. It helps me bring you more powerful stories like this one. Stories that'll make you think, feel, and see the world a little differently. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming. Now, let me tell you about a night that changed everything. At the edge of a polished charity hall, Ethan stood holding a pair of worn children's shoes, the soles barely hanging on. He wasn't asking for help, just waiting for instructions, trying not to be noticed. In a room full of polished laughter and easy wealth, his silence felt out of place. His calloused hands gripped those tiny shoes a little tighter, as if they were the only thing keeping him grounded in a world that wasn't built for people like him. Charlotte noticed him and smiled, not because she was kind, but because she was bored. In her world of board meetings and champagne brunches, everything had become predictable. The same faces, the same conversations, the same hollow victories that felt less satisfying each time. 5 minutes, she said lightly, placing the bet as if it were harmless fun. 5 minutes before he'd give up. 5 minutes before life would remind him where he belonged. People laughed, not loudly, just enough to let him know they agreed. Just enough to make it sting. Ethan nodded and stayed. Not out of pride, not to prove anything, but because the money would cover school fees. Maybe groceries. Maybe shoes that didn't tear when his daughter ran to meet him after work. Minutes passed, then hours. The night grew quieter. Music faded. Conversations thinned. One by one, the important people left, back to their gated communities, their heated pools, their lives where struggle was just a word in someone else's story. Ethan remained, stacking chairs, wiping spills no one saw, fixing small things that wouldn't be noticed in the morning. When his back hurt, he rested against the wall for a moment, then continued. When his phone buzzed with a message from the babysitter, "She's asleep now," he exhaled slowly and kept working. His daughter's face flashed in his mind. Those same brown eyes. That trusting smile. No one checked on him. By dawn, the hall was clean. Perfect. He was still there, his shirt damp with sweat, his movements slower but steady. Charlotte arrived late, designer coffee in hand, expecting an empty room. Instead, she found him, quietly folding the last tablecloth, those children's shoes still sitting on a nearby chair like a quiet reminder of why he came. For the first time, she actually looked at his face. Really looked. It was lined with exhaustion, careful not to complain, carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken battles. She opened her mouth to say something. Maybe thanks. Maybe sorry. But Ethan had already picked up the shoes. He nodded politely. Nothing more. No anger. No lesson. No moment that made it right. He walked out as quietly as he had come, carrying the weight of another night traded for survival. And Charlotte stood there, surrounded by success, draped in luxury, realizing the most painful truth. She would forget the bet by lunchtime, but he would remember this night. Every single time his daughter asked why Daddy looked so tired. What happened next would shatter everything Charlotte thought she knew about power, pride, and the price of cruelty. Ethan's apartment was a 40-minute bus ride from anywhere that mattered. The building's hallway smelled like old cooking oil and damp concrete, but inside, he'd created something different. Drawings covered the refrigerator, bright crayon flowers and stick figures holding hands. A shelf held library books stacked carefully beside a small collection of thrift store toys, each one chosen with intention. His daughter, Lily, was 7, same age as the shoes. "Daddy." Her voice came soft from the bedroom doorway, her dark curls messy from sleep. "You're home." "Hey, sunshine." Ethan's exhaustion melted just slightly. "Go back to bed. It's early. You smell like lemons." She patted closer, her tiny hand finding his. "Like the fancy place." He knelt down, meeting her eyes. "Just cleaning work, baby. Nothing fancy about it." But Lily looked at him the way children do when they see more than adults want them to. When they understand that Daddy's tired isn't the same as other people's tired. That his smile sometimes hides something heavy. What Ethan never told anyone was this. He was terrified. Not of the work. Not of the long nights. But of the moment Lily would realize they were different. That birthday parties at other kids' houses came with bounce castles and catered food, while hers meant dollar store decorations, and a cake he baked himself at midnight. That her classmates' parents drove SUVs while he walked her to school in rain-soaked sneakers. He feared the day she'd stop believing he could fix everything. Across the city, Charlotte sat in her penthouse, the charity gala already a blur. Her assistant, Maya, scrolled through the morning schedule. You have the foundation meeting at 10, then lunch with the investors, then cancel lunch. Charlotte's voice was flat. Maya looked up, surprised. Charlotte never canceled. Everything okay? Fine. But it wasn't. Something about that man's face lingered. The quiet way he'd nodded. No bitterness. No drama. Just dignity she hadn't expected. Her phone buzzed. A text from her father. Board wants your decision by Friday. You're running out of time. Charlotte had built her reputation on being untouchable. Cold, some said. Focused, she preferred. She'd inherited her father's real estate empire at 28 and doubled it in 3 years. People respected her. Feared her even. But lately something felt hollow. Success tasted like ashes. Every victory felt smaller than the last. She looked at the bet receipt from last night, still in her purse. $500. Pocket change to her. Survival money to him. She crumpled it and threw it away. But the image of those worn shoes wouldn't leave her mind. 3 days later, Ethan stood outside Lily's school, waiting for dismissal. His phone rang, an unknown number. Mr. Cole. A woman's crisp voice. This is Margaret from Westfield Academy. We received an anonymous donation covering your daughter's tuition. For the entire year. Ethan's breath caught. What? There must be a mistake. No mistake. The donor requested you come to our office tomorrow at 9 to discuss enrollment and additional resources available to your family. He hung up, his hands shaking. Nobody knew about his application to Westfield. It was a fantasy. A private school with art programs and small classes. The kind of place where kids like Lily could actually thrive. Who would do this? That night, he couldn't sleep. He thought about the charity gala. The cold marble floors. The laughter that followed him like a shadow. And then her face. The woman with the cruel smile and bored eyes. No. Impossible. The next morning, Ethan arrived at Westfield in his one good button-down shirt, freshly ironed. The office was all glass and light. Nothing like the cramped public school Lily attended now. And sitting in the waiting room, scanning her phone with an expression he couldn't quite read, was Charlotte. She looked up. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Mr. Cole, is it? Her voice was different. Softer. Almost uncertain. What are you doing here? His words came out sharper than intended. She stood, smoothing her tailored blazer. I need to talk to you. About that night. I don't need your charity. He turned to leave. Wait. Something raw crept into her tone. Please. Just 5 minutes. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Ethan stopped. Turned. And for the first time, he saw something in her eyes he hadn't seen before. Shame. I looked you up, Charlotte said, her words tumbling out faster than she intended. They sat in a small conference room at Westfield, the door half open. After that night, I couldn't stop thinking about. I needed to know. Know what? Ethan's jaw tightened. How poor I am. You saw that already. No. She flinched. I needed to know why you stayed. Why you didn't walk out when everyone was laughing. He stared at her, waiting. You have a daughter. Lily. 7 years old. You work 3 jobs. Cleaning, weekend construction, night deliveries. You've been on a waiting list for low-income housing for 2 years. Your wife died when Lily was 2. Cancer. No life insurance. Charlotte's voice dropped. You're drowning, and you're doing it quietly. Ethan's hands curled into fists. You had no right. I know. Her voice cracked. I know, and I'm not asking for forgiveness. But I need you to understand something. That bet, that cruelty, that's who I've become. And I hate it. Silence stretched between them. Why? Ethan finally asked. Why do you care now? Charlotte looked away. Because when you picked up those shoes and left, I realized you have more dignity in your exhaustion than I have in all my success. And it broke something in me. So this is about you feeling better? Maybe. She met his eyes. Or maybe it's about trying to do one decent thing before I forget how. Ethan wanted to hate her. Wanted to throw her pity back in her face. But something in her expression stopped him. A vulnerability he recognized because he'd worn it himself. Lily deserves this school, Charlotte continued. Not because of me. Because of you. Because you've fought for her every single day. Let me do this one thing. Please. He should have said no. Should have walked away with his pride intact. But then he thought of Lily's face when she talked about art class. About the way she lit up describing what she'd do if she could paint on real canvases instead of printer paper. One condition, Ethan said slowly. You don't do this anonymously. If you're going to change our lives, you don't get to hide from it. Charlotte's eyes widened. What do you mean? You want to help, really help. Then you show up. You meet Lily. You see what your money actually does. You don't get to throw cash at your guilt and disappear. She hadn't expected that. Hadn't expected him to demand she be human. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Neither of them realized it yet, but that agreement would change everything. Because the more time Charlotte spent in Ethan's world, the more her carefully constructed walls would crumble. And the more Ethan saw beneath her polished armor, the harder it would become to hold onto his anger. Some bridges, once crossed, can never be uncrossed. 3 weeks later, Charlotte sat cross-legged on Ethan's worn carpet, helping Lily with a school project. Glitter covered her $2,000 dress. She didn't care. Miss Charlotte, you're doing it wrong, Lily giggled, repositioning the construction paper. The stars go here. Ethan watched from the kitchen doorway, coffee mug in hand, something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. This woman, this billionaire who'd mocked him, was currently covered in sparkles, laughing at a 7-year-old's art direction. Stay for dinner? The words escaped before he could stop them. Charlotte looked up, surprise softening her features. I'd like that. Later, after Lily fell asleep, they sat on the small balcony overlooking the city lights. Charlotte pulled her knees to her chest, looking more like a lost girl than a titan of industry. Can I tell you something I've never told anyone? Her voice barely rose above a whisper. Ethan nodded. That night at the gala, I made that bet because... She paused, swallowing hard. Because my father was watching. He's always testing me, always pushing me to prove I'm ruthless enough to run his empire, that I won't let emotions make me weak. Her eyes glistened. I thought if I could be cruel without flinching, I'd finally earn his respect. Did it work? He laughed the hardest. A tear slipped down her cheek, and I realized I'd become exactly what he wanted, exactly what I swore I'd never be. Ethan's anger, his walls, everything he'd carefully maintained, it all cracked in that moment. He reached over, his rough hand covering her perfectly manicured one. You're not that person anymore. How do you know? Because that person wouldn't be here. Wouldn't have shown up every day for 3 weeks. Wouldn't let a 7-year-old boss her around. He squeezed her hand gently. You're choosing differently now. Charlotte turned to him, their faces inches apart. The city hummed below them, but everything felt suspended in that breath between wanting and having. Ethan. His phone shattered the moment. He glanced at the screen and his face went pale. What's wrong? He stood abruptly, reading the message again, his hands trembling. It's from Westfield. They're launching an investigation. Investigation? Into what? Ethan looked at her, something breaking in his expression. Into the donation. Someone filed a complaint claiming it was fraudulent. That I'm scamming the system. His voice cracked. They're saying I might have. That you and I might have planned this together. To defraud the school. Charlotte's blood ran cold. Who would? Then it hit her. Her father's words echoed. You're getting soft, Charlotte. I'm watching. No, she whispered. He wouldn't. But she knew he would. The next morning, Charlotte stormed into her father's office on the 60th floor. You reported Ethan? Her voice shook with rage. Richard Sterling didn't look up from his paperwork. I'm protecting the family name. You've been spending time with a low-class opportunist. People talk. He's not. He's using you, Charlotte. And you're too blind to see it. Now he met her eyes, cold and calculating. I've already contacted our lawyers. That donation will be revoked. The man will be exposed for what he is. You have no proof because there's nothing to prove. I don't need proof. I need you to remember who you are. He leaned back in his leather chair. You're a Sterling, not some charity worker playing house with the help. Charlotte's hands clenched. If you do this, I walk away. From everything. No, you won't. His smile was cruel. Because if you do, I'll make sure that man and his daughter are blacklisted from every institution in this city. She'll never get into another good school. He'll never work anywhere reputable. I have that power and you know it. Charlotte felt the world tilt. She'd underestimated how far he'd go. Why? Her voice broke. Why does my happiness threaten you so much? Because happiness makes you weak. I built this empire on hard choices. So will you? He returned to his paperwork, dismissing her. You have until Friday to end whatever this is. Or I end it for you. She left his office, her legs barely carrying her. By evening, the news had spread. Social media posts appeared, carefully doctored screenshots suggesting financial impropriety. Anonymous sources claimed Ethan had seduced a wealthy benefactor for his daughter's gain. Ethan's phone exploded with messages. Judgment. Disgust. Former friends who now believed he'd stooped to using a woman for money. When Charlotte arrived at his apartment, he wouldn't let her in. Ethan, please. They're saying I'm using you, that I'm some kind of con artist. His voice came through the closed door, hollow. Lily's classmates' parents are already talking. She came home crying today because kids said her daddy is a liar. My father did this. I can fix it. No. The door opened slightly. His eyes were red, exhausted. Your world and mine, they don't mix. I was stupid to think they could. Don't say that. Charlotte, every time you try to help, it gets worse. Your money, your connections, your guilt, it's destroying us. His voice cracked. I can't protect Lily from this. And I can't watch you torn between me and your family. So what are you saying? I'm saying goodbye. He stepped back. Thank you for trying. But some bridges shouldn't be crossed. The door closed. Charlotte stood in the hallway, her heart shattering into pieces she didn't know how to put back together. For 2 days, Charlotte didn't leave her penthouse. She sat in the dark, her father's ultimatum echoing. Choose the empire or choose him. It should have been simple. She'd worked her entire life for this. Everything she was, everything she'd built, it all depended on staying in her father's good graces. But when she closed her eyes, she didn't see boardrooms or balance sheets. She saw Lily's glitter-covered smile, Ethan's gentle strength, the way he'd held her hand and told her she was choosing differently now. For the first time in her life, she realized what she actually wanted. Not power, not legacy, freedom. On the 3rd day, Charlotte walked into her father's office with a single folder. I'm done, she said simply. Richard looked up, irritated. Done with what? With you. With this empire. With pretending I want any of this. She placed the folder on his desk. My resignation. Effective immediately. His face darkened. You're throwing away everything. No. I'm finally choosing something. She met his eyes without flinching. You taught me to be ruthless. To never show weakness. But you know what? The strongest thing I've ever done was admitting I was wrong. Charlotte, I'll hold a press conference this afternoon. I'll explain everything. The bet, the donation, your campaign to destroy an innocent man. Every detail. Her voice was steady, powerful. You can try to blacklist Ethan, but you'll do it while the whole world knows exactly who you are. For the first time, her father had no response. She turned and walked out, her heels clicking against marble. An hour later, she stood outside Ethan's building, her heart pounding. She'd called the press. Burned every bridge to her old life. But none of it mattered if he wouldn't open the door. She knocked. Silence. Ethan, I know you're angry. I know I've caused you nothing but pain. Her voice carried through the door. But I need you to know, I'm not going back. I'm not choosing them. I'm choosing me. The person I want to be. And that person loves you. The door opened slowly. Ethan stood there, eyes wide with shock. What did you just say? I love you, she repeated, tears streaming. I love the way you love your daughter. I love your strength, your kindness, your ability to see good in someone who didn't deserve it. And I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking you to let me prove I'm serious. Charlotte, his voice broke. You can't just, your entire life. My entire life was a cage I was too afraid to leave. She stepped closer. You showed me what real courage looks like. Now let me show you mine. Behind him, Lily's small voice. Daddy? Is Miss Charlotte okay? Ethan looked back at his daughter, then at Charlotte, and something shifted in his expression. Yes, sunshine, he said softly, opening the door wider. She's okay. Charlotte stepped inside, and for the first time in weeks, she could breathe. The press conference was chaos. Charlotte stood at the podium, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. Her father sat in the back row, his expression unreadable, flanked by his lawyers. 3 months ago, I made a bet at a charity gala, Charlotte began, her voice steady. I bet that a hard-working single father would give up after 5 minutes of honest work. I did it to impress my father, to prove I was cold enough, ruthless enough, worthy enough to inherit his empire. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I was wrong. And when that man stayed all night, when he worked with dignity and grace while I slept comfortably at home, something changed in me. She paused. His name is Ethan Cole. He's a better person than I'll ever be. And when I tried to make amends, my father launched a campaign to destroy him. The room erupted. Her father stood to leave. Sit down, Dad. Charlotte's voice cut through the noise. Because I'm not finished. He froze. I have copies of every email, every fabricated document, every instruction you gave to discredit Ethan and his daughter. I'm turning them over to federal investigators. She looked directly at him. You taught me to be ruthless. Congratulations. You succeeded. Richard's face went white. But you also taught me something else, what I never want to become. Her voice softened. I'm resigning from Sterling Enterprises. I'm divesting my shares. And I'm using every penny to start a foundation for single parents who are fighting impossible battles every single day. She stepped away from the podium. The legal battle lasted weeks. Richard tried everything, intimidation, bribery, threats. But Charlotte had documented everything. The media frenzy was relentless, but for once it told the truth. In the end, Richard Sterling's empire didn't crumble, but his reputation did. He remained a billionaire, but a disgraced one. Charlotte lost her inheritance, lost her penthouse, lost everything that once defined her, and found she'd never felt richer. The day the foundation launched, Ethan showed up at the small office Charlotte had rented. You really did it, he said, looking around at the modest space, nothing like the luxury she'd known. I really did. She smiled. Scared. Terrified, he admitted. Then softer. Proud. He crossed the room, and this time, there was no hesitation. His lips found hers, and the kiss tasted like new beginnings, like hard-won freedom, like everything they'd fought to become. I love you, he whispered against her mouth. I love you too, she whispered back. From the doorway, Lily's voice. Does this mean Miss Charlotte is staying? They broke apart, laughing. Yes, sunshine, Ethan said, pulling his daughter into their embrace. She's staying. 1 year later, the foundation had helped 247 families. Small victories, Charlotte often thought, but victories nonetheless. She and Ethan had moved into a modest apartment together. Nothing fancy, but filled with light and laughter and Lily's artwork covering every wall. Charlotte worked long hours, sometimes alongside the very people she was helping, learning what real work felt like. She'd never been happier. Ready. Ethan appeared in the bedroom doorway, adjusting his tie, one of only 2 he owned. Charlotte smiled, zipping up her simple blue dress. Not designer. Not expensive. Just pretty. Ready. They were heading to Lily's school, Westfield Academy, where she thrived. The scholarship Charlotte had established meant kids like Lily, from families like Ethan's, now had real chances. As they walked hand in hand down the street, Charlotte thought about that night at the gala. About the woman she'd been, bored, cruel, empty. What are you thinking about? Ethan squeezed her hand. 5 minutes, she said with a soft laugh. What? I gave you 5 minutes that night. Look what you did with them. Ethan stopped walking, turning to face her. We did with them. Lily ran ahead, her backpack bouncing, calling back. Come on, slowpokes. Charlotte laughed, real, full, unguarded. She'd lost an empire, but gained a family. Lost her father's approval, but found her own identity. Lost everything that once defined success, and discovered what success actually meant. Some bets, she realized, you're meant to lose. Because losing can be the first step toward winning something far more valuable. That night, after tucking Lily in, Charlotte and Ethan sat on their small balcony, watching the city lights. Any regrets? He asked. Charlotte thought about it, really thought about it. The money she'd given up. The power. The prestige. Then she looked at the man beside her, at the life they'd built from the ashes of her old one. Not a single one, she said. And she meant it. Because in the end, the greatest wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in moments like these, simple, quiet, real. It's measured in love. Thank you so much for watching, beautiful souls. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, it's never too late to choose differently. It's never too late to become who you were meant to be. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, choose kindness. Choose courage. Choose love.